Excellent. Very good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are joining from. Welcome to yet another session for the GwS Learning Guild members. These are L&D leaders across industries, across countries. We get together about once in a month to deep dive on an aspect with regards to learning and development. For today, we have selected micro-learnings as our theme to discuss. I am Shanti Sharma with a passion for developing and growing people. I engage with leadership development professional skills with about 26 years of corporate experience in leadership development space. I have engaged and dabbled with microlearning, but I find myself as an independent consultant engaging with microlearning far more than in a corporate. And my intent through today's session is going to be to nudge you to see, can we think of creative ways to help people learn in organizations in an easier and simplified format? And one of the approaches is microlearning. Yeah. With that, please expect this to be an interactive session. You can unmute and speak. There will be areas where I'll ask you to put things in the text chat, or you can raise your hand and we will go in the order in which you've raised your hand to share your ideas and thoughts. With that, my first question to you is going to be, have you engaged with microlearning earlier before, and what was your experience? If we could have one or two people share so that I know where we stand before we jump into the session.
Shanti, so microlearning is a short content, can we say?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Have you experienced it, Tilaka?
Yes, Shanti. So in our organization, we are sharing some learning bites on monthly basis. Yeah. So it's a kind of 2 minutes video or 3 minutes video. We are sending them.
Brilliant, brilliant. So yes, that is absolutely micro-learning. Anyone else who has had any sort of experience with micro-learning? Yogita says it's her first time. Absolutely. I just wanted to understand where we stand and we will deep dive. Okay.
Shanti, hello. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yonko, then Preeta.
Sure, Shanti. Thank you.
Go ahead, Yonko, please share.
So I was doing this for the past 7 years, and I've trained 2.5 or 3.5 managers, and yeah, we were also training 100 DevOps people, so we did it.
Do you use micro-learning to do such training?
Yes, this is the only way to improve senior people, in my opinion.
So true. With the lack of time and the shortened attention spans, absolutely. Preeta, how about you?
Well, thank you, Shanti. Basically, micro-learning, we have basically used to nudge the learners, because today in this fast-paced world, I have noticed is that micro-learning comes as a quick thing, right? Anything they want on speed. So a quick learning on any concept, say, for instance, time management, any tips and tricks. I think micro-learning really sells well in this category, Zen and millennials. That's what I've noticed. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Zen millennials, I think they thrive on microlearning.
Microlearning.
The other generations do engage in microlearning a lot as compared to the traditional longer models of learning.
Right.
Excellent. If you can all scan this QR code, I will also put the link to the Mentimeter in the text chat.
I cannot because I'm using the phone. And another thing for the micro-learning is when you hold the hands for the juniors, you can micro-hold the hands and then leave them actually do something.
Could you repeat yourself, Yonko?
So apart from the seniors, you can use micro-learning for holding hands. I mean, the juniors, you hold the hands for juniors for a while, and then for a micro while, and then you leave them do something by themselves.
Absolutely. We call that as performance performance support as people are learning to perform. Microlearning is very, very handy. Thank you for the share. People, you can see a Mentimeter link in the chat. If you can click and we will also see what people are responding to. So you have to just rank order. What is it that you would like to learn most? That can be your first option. Which is not really very interesting to you, you can move that. You can change the position. Understand, creating, integrating into daily routine. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Understanding and measuring seem to be key, integrating into daily routines. Sure. Thirty more seconds before we move ahead. I'm so glad to see this ranking. We will be learning how to create an effective microlearning. We will see how we can integrate it into our daily routines, into the daily routines of the learners we support as L&D. We will start by understanding what microlearning is. We will see how to measure. In terms of technology, just a couple of hours is not sufficient to teach any particular technology. So we will only scratch the surface by naming the technology that you can explore. But rest of the concepts we will absolutely be covering. Thank you so much, people. With that, I move back to my presentation. So as a number of you identified, microlearning is the process of acquiring knowledge through very small chunks of information. This could be a couple of lines of text, it could be an image, it could be an infographic, a short 2-minute, 5-minute video, an audio podcast for 5 minutes, maybe a quiz, maybe a board game on the floor, maybe somebody just coming onto the floor and doing a pop quiz for people to respond. All of these are ways in which microlearning can be implemented in organizations, and these are short. But how does microlearning differ from the traditional learning? For our purposes today, we are going to call the traditional learning as macrolearning, which is by definition is larger chunks of content being covered. While microlearning is about small bite-sized nuggets, macrolearning provides in-depth, detailed knowledge on a particular topic or subject. When we say microlearning, it does not get into the details, but it is like a reminder. It is like a nudge for people to recollect certain pieces of knowledge, whereas macro learning actually teaches. It teaches a process, it teaches a technology, it could teach a language, it could teach some financial concept. So when you are engaging with the learner for the first time, it might be relevant that you start with some sort of a macro learning, and then to revise, revisit, practice, and embed the learning. Micro learning might be really handy. So first,
Shanti, sorry to interrupt. We are able to see your full screen with presenter view. Would you like to reshare?
Yes, I would. tell me whether you can see the presenter screen even now.
No, this is good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the next piece of differentiation, if you have to say, is the kind of the type of learning that we engage with in microlearning and macrolearning. Microlearning is skill-based, is like a refresher, as I've just mentioned, whereas macrolearning really engages with in-depth study of a particular topic or concept. So because it is in-depth study, it does take longer in terms of duration, and it covers lots of complex topics, a series of process. A coding language that you have to learn may take you anywhere from a few weeks to a few months for you to master that particular skill. Yeah, when we do graduation, post-graduation in a particular field, to acquire that much of complex knowledge, that much of volume of knowledge, we need to spend in that much of time. Whereas microlearning is just in time. When I'm looking for help, it gives me that quick support, that quick help. For example, while I'm coding, I am getting an error that I don't know how to bug. I will quickly go to a website and say, I'm getting this error. How can I fix it? And magically, I get the response and I'm able to solve. If I am going to make a sales call, a sales pitch, and I really want the key product highlights, I want to memorize those before I go and meet up the client. Microlearning can really help me quickly revise all the key points or highlights of my products or service. The last one, but not the least one, is the time spent. Microlearning is anywhere between 10 seconds to 10 minutes, whereas anything beyond 10 minutes might be bordering the duration of macro learning. Half an hour, 1 hour, what we are engaging in today, a 90-minute session is a macro learning. We cannot consider this as microlearning because there will be so many things covered and you might pick up only 1 or 2 things that are relevant to you. Secondly, macro learning is push content, wherein I am telling you information. We may be playing some games, some activities, but it is still pushing out that information. Micro learning typically works on an on-demand approach, wherein people want to go select the piece of information that they would like to learn and build, and then engage with the content based on their need. So with this understanding of microlearning and macrolearning, we are going to proceed ahead. A quick check. Does anybody have any questions with regards to what we've covered so far?
No, Shanti, it's good.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. So why does microlearning work? Our ability to retain information, our retention spans are lesser than that of a goldfish. Goldfish has a 9-second retention span. With all the digital media and the availability of information around us, we can retain information not more than 8 seconds. That is one reason why small bite-sized information might be far more relevant than 2 hours, 5 hours, 5 days worth of learning, where people might forget most of what they are learning. How does microlearning work? Because it is a constant reminder. It tells you, don't forget this, don't forget this, don't forget this. It's a nudge to push out that small piece of information to you again and again and again so many times that you will not forget. Typically what happens is when you start learning, because of all the energy, enthusiasm, the amount of retention is very high. But slowly around the beyond the 15th minute, you will start to see that the attention span starts to drop. That might be a nice place to introduce a microlearning in your macrolearning to help people retain what they have learned, to help people remember what they have covered, so that at the end of the workshop, when you ask them what are the key takeaways today, they are able to at least recap 50% of what they have learned, if not all. Yeah, typically that's what we've seen. Nobody can actually remember everything that is covered. That's why people will ask you, may I have the slides from this deck? May I have a recording from this presentation? The reason being, they themselves know it is impossible for them to retain all this information, and rather they would like to go back to the information and see what they remember, what they don't remember, and see if they need to ask some help around. Now that we know what microlearning is, how it differs from the traditional learning, my question to you would be, what do you think are the benefits of microlearning? Take a guess.
Shanti, I'll go. We had done this for a sales team, So every morning they would go through a few seconds of this micro learning. And I think for them, it really worked because it is top of the mind awareness. For example, how to handle objections, various subjects under sales.
Brilliant. Top of the mind, just in time. Definitely microlearning is a great way.
Correct.
Thank you, Bina. What else?
Shanti, this is Preeta here, and I felt the recall effect was great in microlearning, Shanti.
Yes. So when you give people a 4-hour workshop and give them an assessment versus you give them some microlearning beyond the 4-hour workshop and then give the assessment scores that is coupled with microlearning is far better than that one-time learning. So absolutely the retention is far better. Thank you, Preeta.
Thank you, Shanti.
Also, the results, they can do some job for the micro learning time, and you can get paid for that.
Very true. Just in time. Those are things they really don't need to remember. These are things if they can see how it is done and do it, and they get their job done, work done in much lesser time without spending time away from work.
$50.
Yes, you can charge the customer for all the chargeable hours you're spending. Yes, please.
So I think, as you said, this is more of pull content rather than push content.
Yeah.
So the learner engagement is a lot higher.
Very true. Very true. So learner engagements are higher for several other reasons, but this is also one big reason because microlearning is typically when I want to learn, I will go and pull that content. Whereas when your learning manager sends you for a 2-day workshop, it's like, oh my God, I've got so much pending work, but I still have to sit and attend the workshop, can be heavy on people. Brilliant, people. Any others before we move ahead to show the summary of benefits?
I believe the people feel better because they actually do their job.
It actually gets lots of work done. It is very, very impactful. Excellent. So let me just highlight what are all the various benefits, and almost all of it you have covered. Lots of flexibility. It is accessible. It is mobile friendly. It is user friendly. I just won't say mobile friendly. I would actually say user friendly because not always does microlearning have to be in digital format. There is a huge misconception that microlearning has to be in digital format, only then it's successful. I've seen board games work brilliantly. I've seen quizzes work brilliantly. So what I would say is it is user friendly rather than mobile friendly. Can be consumed several times. There is no limit, but if you say somebody has to spend 4 hours and if they have to redo the 4 hours, managers will think twice before approving it. But whereas it's a 5-minute learning nugget that the learner has to refresh, nobody is going to stop them. So it can be revised, rehearsed as many times. And it gives learner a lot of freedom when they want to do, how they want to do. Can they do the learning while traveling to or from office or just before going to bed or when they have downtime? All of these are interesting ways in which microlearning adds flexibility. Efficiency and convenience, I think you've spoken, all of you have spoken about this. It is quickly developed. You don't have to think a lot about the design, the look and feel, because these are quick nuggets. It solves everyday problem. How, when I'm going for a sales pitch, how can I do this? I'm getting stuck with this particular issue with my team member. What do I do? It's a very quick fix solution that people can get hand, and it solves their day-to-day problems and makes their lives really convenient. Also, such learning is very easily searchable. People can figure out, navigate their way to that exact module, to that exact section, to that exact video, blog, whatever it is that is relevant to them before they go and consume it. Third one, engagement and motivation. These are really small nuggets. Typically, there is an element of gamification, fun, points, so people have that sense of competition. You can do it at an organization-wide level, putting your teams into various departments and say, does department A win over department B? I've done this while we were doing an entire culture overhaul in my organization, where we divided the organization into teams based on their departments. all services, all technology, all operations kind of teams. And then we used to have these games. It was fun. People learned. People pulled others to learn. That was the funniest part, because they wanted more scores for their own team. They would pull others to say, come, quick, 5-minute nugget, learn and then go. We'll get more points. So lots of learner engagement and motivation, and attention rates are pretty high. Last but not the least, the impact, because it gives immediate effect, it gets work done, it prevents cognitive overload. Cognitive overload is how much of information can human brain store at a point in time. Yeah, so there is some number to it, some amount of data we can store. It alleviates that. More cognitive load on human brains, diseases like Alzheimer's, forgetfulness, mistakes in day-to-day work increase because of the cognitive overload. Continued cognitive overload leads to Alzheimer's. So we can prevent all of that by giving these bite-sized learning. Now that we have seen that there can be so many benefits, I'm sure we would also want to see how it ties into the various learning styles of our audience. I'm going to explain what these learning styles are, people. Then I'll put you into a breakout room where each room will get about 2 styles. What I want you to go based on the style definition, if you can come back and share what kinds of microlearning would you as an L&D leader design for that kind of learner? Yeah, to give you an example, visual learners are people who see things, people who need to see colors, patterns, shapes. They learn by seeing. Auditory learners are people who learn by listening. Verbal learners are people who learn through speech, whether it is where others are sharing with them or they are sharing with others. They need to engage with verbal content in order to learn. Kinesthetic learners are people who really have to do. They are the very touchy-feely kinds. They have to get their hands dirty. They learn by doing. They don't learn by sitting and watching like the visual learners. Logical learners are those who prefer using logic. So they like solving problems. They like solving puzzles. They like solving games, quizzes, because that gives them that energy and a sense of learning. Social learners are people who learn in a social setup, where you can put them into groups and they really engage with others. They learn from others. They are willing to share. That's their way of learning. Solitary learners are people who can sit in a corner, read a book all by themselves, go through a website all by themselves. They engage with themselves in order to learn rather than with the others. People who engage with nature to learn are naturalistic learners. Yeah. Are we clear on the types of learners before I put you into the breakout rooms?
Shanti, the slides aren't moving. We're still at engagement and motivation. Couldn't even see impact and effectiveness fully.
Are you able to see the? Oh, okay.
You're able to see visual, auditory.
Is the entire slide visible?
No, verbal. I can see till verbal. Others, please add in as you see what
I'm going to stop and reshare, because according to me, if I click, I'm moving to the next slide.
There is a lag, I believe. Because even Jayashree messaged me asking if the slides are moving. That's when I realized it's not visible to all. We can see the presenter view now.
No idea what's happening.
Yes, now yes, we can see all.
Yeah. Maybe once we can have a look at the previous slide as well, because some points were not noted.
Sure. This one?
Yeah, I think this, okay, yeah.
If you want to take a screenshot, please feel free to do so.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have these kinds of learners. Let me put you into breakout rooms.
Shanti, can you please go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You are going to be in one of the 4 rooms, people.
Shanti, there's a question on the chat.
Yeah, I can't see. Can you read out?
Yes, please. Could you please tell the difference between verbal and solitary learning styles?
Yeah, verbal are those learners who have to say things out loud or hear others say things. So they have to engage with words. Solitary learners are who can sit and read, who can sit and listen to a podcast on their own. They don't need others to engage with, unlike the social or the visual people who need to engage with other kinds of people. Solitary learners are great observers. They can sit and observe others to understand understand concepts. Did I answer?
Ma'am, and also naturalistic, if you can just explain.
People who engage with nature to learn. Yeah, very similar to solitary learner. Solitary learner looks inwards to learn more about themselves, more about why they behave a certain way, whereas naturalistic people look around in nature. You know, they learn from plants, animals,
Right.
air.
Okay.
No, so that's their style of learning. They don't need books, they don't need videos, they don't need podcasts. They learn from nature.
Okay.
But those are generally the senior people. And the way that we do it in Bulgaria is the way that you do it in India. You have a labor pyramid where the juniors are beaten. I mean, we kind of use it all for everyone, and you become a solitary learner when you are more than senior master, for example.
Yeah.
One more question, is verbal similar to auditory?
Verbal, auditory is people who listen by listening only. Yeah, they don't need to speak. Yeah, if as a child you were somebody who would open the book and read aloud to learn, you are probably a verbal learner where you had to say things out yourself to learn.
Yes. One more comment Padma has said. Micro-learning can be used only for refreshers, but I'm afraid if it can be used for first-time learning, can you guide on this?
It can't be. That's absolutely right. Yeah. When we looked at the differences earlier, we did say that micro-learning is good for nuggets, small bite-sized learning, for skill-based learning, for just-in-time performance support, but micro-learning is not good for learning a coding language, for example, learning financial concepts, for example. Any in-depth knowledge, micro-learning is not great. However, with the traditional forms of learning that is coupled with microlearning, you can enhance the learner output a lot. So after you've given them a 2 months training on creating code in Java, for example, you can have those small microlearning nuggets to refresh the concepts that they have learned, apply it in different situations that they have learned.
Yeah, these are the questions. We can proceed.
Yeah, I'm just renaming the room so that they know which room is doing what.
I also feel when you said it cannot be done for first times or it can only be for refresher courses, I'm wondering, can we just use trivia or did you know kinds of micro-learning content for people to get started or introduced to something new before we move on to micro-learning?
Absolutely.
To intrigue interest, maybe if not get into the complete details, but to get people started with a new concept. Did you know kinds of trivia for them to get interested, and then maybe an in-depth macro learning on the specific topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'll open the breakout rooms now, people. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and in your room name will suggest which 2 learning styles you're going to be working on. Come back and share what kind of micro-learning might you design for that kind of audience. Yeah, and I'm opening your rooms now. You should be put into your rooms shortly. Hi, Ruchi.
Hey Shanti, Radhe Krishna.
Radhe Krishna. I am not sure if you're already assigned to a room. No, let me assign you. You should be moved to a room now. back.
Hello, hi.
Lovely. Hope, I know the time is very limited. I hope you at least got started on the discussion.
Yes, we could. Yes.
Yeah, let's hear from visual, Vaishnavi Yogita.
I think they all are not yet back, ma'am. We can see only myself and Ishita joining back.
Oh, it says other. Okay, let me just check. Let's wait for others to come back too.
Jayashree and I were done discussing, so we left the meeting room with learning.
No worries at all. That's the idea. Welcome back. Welcome back. We'll start with the visual room. Vaishnavi and Yogita.
Yogita, would you like to go?
Yeah. So we discussed for visual options. We thought having actually I have not written down. Can you go, Vaishnavi?
Sure. Yeah. So for visual learners, we thought we'll have more of videos, animations, rather than not have words. Yeah, it could be some specific characters through which knowledge is shared. Like you have some specific personas who come constantly, frequently at regular intervals to share some inputs. Infographics was also one more thing that we thought, rather than having Word documents or sharing verbal content, we can have some infographics where they have some visual elements also that will help them retain, remember, recollect as and when they want. For logical learners, I think that was also part of our group. We thought we'll do some puzzles. We'll have games like treasure hunts, where they need to follow a step-by-step process to get to where they have to. That will help them understand what needs to be done to arrive at a desired outcome. Use cases, case studies as to how the problems were solved earlier and how can they be applied in the real world context. And instruction manuals, because they are logical people rather than beating around the bush. They prefer being told very straightforward, step-by-step processes as to what they need to be doing to learn something. These were some of the concepts we learned.
Lovely. Can you think, I'm going to nudge you a little bit, and apologies if I'm putting you on spot. Can you think of a way in which you can combine the needs of a visual and a logical learner?
Probably a video quiz.
Yeah, video quiz, or a quiz in which they have to put together something picture. Only if they solve a part of the puzzle, they get the next piece to make a big picture. That drives in motivation. So we are already thinking about, and none of us are only one kind of learner. We are always a combination of several. Yeah, so it is important that a number of our learning needs are catered to. Brilliant, room number one. Let's look at auditory and solitary. Beena, Preeta, and Ruchi.
Hi, Shanti. May I go ahead, Shanti? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so maybe my team can add up if I missed anything. So we had this auditory, Shanti, and auditory, as you mentioned, all those who like to listen, right? So taking that into account, we felt that podcast would be a good source.
Yeah.
Then during the internship development program, Shanti, wherein lots of product trainings are imparted and things like that, for educational institutions, lectures and things like that, we felt auditory would go well.
Lovely.
And then we had a solitary, Shanti, and we just thought journaling, because they are more into all that diary, and then no, we felt those kind of things would be more applicable to a solitary learner, Shanti.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Would distance? Sorry, please go ahead, Shanti. I had a query.
Complete. Yeah, please complete.
Shanti, would distance education also come as part of solitary learning, distance education?
It won't. The reason being the distance education includes a lot of these forms. It will include some visuals, it will include some audios, it will include some go do this practical activity, come back into it. The distance learning any kind of learning will include a number of these learning styles.
Yeah, because in a decade, last 20 years back, we had this IGNU and all giving distance education program, right, Shanti?
Yes.
So I just thought on those lines. Those days, we just had those books which used to come. We didn't have anything. So
Printed books would come and you
that's correct.
complete it.
So that is not happening anymore. So
I'm
that's
glad.
what.
I'm glad.
Mostly macro learning, I believe, right, Preeta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Study of a specific subject.
Yes. Yeah.
Just
So,
one
ma'am,
addition to go ahead.
No. After you complete, ma'am, I had a query.
Yeah, auditory could also be where the person has to ask a question and they're listening to the response. They enjoy listening to a response rather than seeing somebody do it, observing somebody do it. Because they go with sounds. They would want to ask a question, somebody respond to that. They are very happy with that. Yeah.
Thank you, Shanti. Sure.
Ma'am, I just had a query. A query came up when Preeta was mentioning about induction trainings, product training during induction. So in these cases, how will we identify what is the trainer, the type of, what kind of a trainer or learner he is? Because I don't know him really well, and I won't know whether he's an auditory, he's a solitary, what kind of.
You cannot know that. You cannot know that. That's why your entire learning module, the 2-day, 3-day product training or induction that you would conduct, should include a variety of this. It should include some videos, it should include some games, it should include something in which they are listening to someone. It should include ways in which they can present back. Those are the verbal ones they are presenting back to the audience. It has to include a combination of these activities to make the learning impactful.
Yeah, so we cannot have only one of its kind, I think, because we won't be really able to identify, what would be their specific learning types.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, verbal and naturalistic, Tilaga and Urmila.
Okay, so I will go ahead with verbal. Maybe you can take it up the naturalist. Okay, so when coming to this verbal, so they are very much interested in learning this vocabularies. They might be good in learning and writing those words. Maybe helps.
Yeah, they love writing, they love journaling, they love telling others, teaching others, sharing what they have learned. Yeah, all of this are great ways for verbals to learn. Sure, thank you. Naturalistic.
Actually we just had an idea. We don't know exactly. So what the organizations or corporates do is they have these CSR activities where they actually have to go outside and then they have to do, for example, if there's a lake cleaning activity or a beach cleaning activity, and that is a kind of a natural setup for natural learners where if we give them the entire activity that this is what you have to do on this particular day, then the team management, the thinking who will clean which part, who is comfortable cleaning which part, who will bring the gloves, who will bring the net, and then who will bring the bags to actually put all the rubbish, how much area they'll cover at what point of time. So all that can be combined with a natural setting and a leadership kind of or team management.
Wonderful one. It's a combination of naturalistic and kinesthetic where people are wanting to do and learn things while they're also enjoying being in nature to be able to learn. Brilliant.
I just had one more input. So supposing if we have to combine the verbal and the naturalistic thing. So I just thought if when there are activities like bird watching or when there are activities like a walk in the forest or something like that. So you walk there and then you call out the things which you're observing. So that's a combination of verbal plus naturalistic.
Yeah, the what do you call the dictaphone kind of journaling. I'm watching this bird. Its beak is this color. Its wings. That kind of journaling, the where you record your audio, is verbal and naturalistic combined together. Yeah, they go back and then they listen to all of their recordings because they can't remember everything, and that gives them lots of information about the environment they have just surveyed. Yeah.
What Urmila said triggered another info in me. I think these poetry reading sessions, book reading sessions mostly happen in parks.
Yeah.
Right? I know these initiatives that happen in Kaban Park, especially in Bangalore, where they have a lot of such groups where people come together every weekend for storytelling or sharing a book review.
Excellent.
So those would be.
So a naturalistic person would enjoy reading book in a park, but a solitary person would want his or her comfort in a blanket on their couch and sitting and reading all by themselves. So same kind of learning, different people will engage with differently. Lovely. We have room number 4, social and kinesthetic, Dr. Vidya, Ishita, and Jayashree.
Yeah, myself and Ishita discussed mainly. We were not able to reach Dr. Vidya. So what we were saying is social and kinesthetic kind of, goes well with each other as well. Like, for example, if it is a social learning, we can go for group games or quiz, where they will all get involved, the entire, so the learning becomes fun on the one side and competitive on the other. Then we have kinesthetic, we can again games and activities. So that it's like a combination of both.
Yes.
So this is what we discussed. If Ishita wants to add something more, you can please.
Jayashree, you have already mentioned that whatever we discussed in the meeting room.
Yeah. A lot of insight. What we did just now, the breakout rooms, is a form of social microlearning, where you were put in groups, you discussed, you learned from each other, you built onto each other's information and knowledge. You came back and presented, and then just by hearing somebody share, one of you said, no, oh, that gives me another idea. We are building onto each other's idea. That is a social kind of a learning that we just did.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Love the examples. I'm hoping you're already gathering some ideas in terms of how you can go back and apply it back at your workplace.
Shanti, can I ask a question here?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we usually do a lot of study about VAK, right? When we talk about learners. I just want to know about the statistics. I'm very curious about these naturalistic learners now.
Very few. That's why we don't talk about them.
Yes, I'm very curious. And there's so much you can do, analogies and things like that.
But it becomes very difficult if you as an L&D leader, how will you design for a solitary learner? You can just give them a book and say, go read it yourself. Yeah, then where is your input, your creativity? Or naturalistic becomes very difficult for corporates to take the entire batch of 50 new joiners into a park and make them sit there and learn. So that's the reason only the VAK predominantly are focused on.
Correct.
Yeah, with microlearning, lots of auditory and logical is also focused on. The traditional learning, we stick to VAK, but we can do a lot with all the other styles. Absolutely.
Correct. Thank you, Shanti.
Most welcome. Yeah. With that, we move to talking about the key principles of microlearning. It helps learners achieve one learning objective at a time, and that is very key. When we even get to the design phase, you can't say that the learner should be able to manage time, prioritize tasks, measure any time wasters and eliminate them. All of this, if you put into one learning objective, that is not microlearning, that becomes traditional learning. If you just talk about one thing, they are able to identify time wasters on that day. That's about it. They don't do anything else. That kind of an objective is good for designing a microlearning. So whenever you are designing a microlearning, think about just one objective which you can measure at the end of the learning whether that happened or not. It's a very a measurable outcome that you are working on. Provide specific and targeted information, knowledge, practice, revision, very targeted. It is accessible on multiple devices. I know a lot of microlearning we keep thinking it's only digital media, but a board game that people can play again and again is a wonderful way. When my kids were young, we bought a box of Ramayana, Mahabharata. There would be cue cards as they are playing that board game. They would have to answer questions. I know so much about Ramayana and Mahabharata only because of playing those games. So that's no digital device, but it can be played hundreds of times again and again, and it is available every time you need it. Comes in various formats. We just saw those. Can be used at different stages of the learning cycle. Yeah. Before we begin to see where we are we on the same page? Does somebody have lots of knowledge? Somebody has less of knowledge. During the session, role plays, social interaction to build on each other's interaction. Towards the end, to recap, post the session, again to recap, to practice, to immerse. So it is used throughout the life cycle of a learner's journey. Yeah, it can be standalone. Just learning how to identify time wasters in itself is a learning module. It does not need to be taken along with pre or post training. But when we talk about a time management workshop, the workshop includes lots of bits and pieces that have to be put together in a particular sequence for it to be meaningful. Yeah, so that is one key distinguishing factor between macro learning and micro learning, where micro learning is very subtle in terms of providing one learning objective, covers a part of it and can be consumed. Only that part can be consumed, has no dependency, interdependence on any other part at all. With that, what are the 4 elements? Firstly is the micro-learning objective. We have to start with what is the key learning objective. So here is where I would like you all to take a piece of paper and pencil and think about one key problem you are solving. Are you trying to solve for first-time managers? Are you trying to solve for strategic thinking? Are you trying to help salespeople? Are you trying to increase product knowledge? Think about your organization. What kind of learning are you trying to enhance? In that big bucket, think about one thing that you feel you can achieve through microlearning, and that will be your learning objective. Just to give you an example, if you are teaching somebody about fire safety measures, yeah, so you would want them to know when can I use the water as an agent to put off fire, or when can I use the spray to put off fire. In that case, a quiz is good enough, and that's a good simple objective I can think. So my objective would be, by the end of this microlearning module, my learner should identify which fire extinguishing tool can they use for the kind of fire they encounter. So that is the learning objective. So it is very specific. I'll give you about a minute to think through that objective. If you have questions as you're designing the objective, please call out. If the objective is done, people, half the battle is won. We won't be able to complete the entire learning journey today, but if the objective is clearly articulated, the way you will design your microlearning is going to be very impactful. I'm hoping you have at least one learning objective that you're going to be working through the rest of the session. The second part is the microlearning content. How do I present this content? Yeah, does it need to be videos? Does it need to be an animation? Does it need to be a blog, written articles? Does it need to be a game, a quiz, a nudge card, a digital microlearning, physical microlearning? To be conducted at a particular time, can be done at any point in time. People have to gather to complete, people don't have to gather to complete. Those kinds of thinking is what happens in microlearning content. Let me give an example to highlight this. Last year, we did a series of 30-day nudges. We called it Growember because we did it in November. It was all leadership nudges. What we did with that entire series of Growember is the first slide had a quote that leaders would relate to that spoke about a problem statement that leaders face. Then there was a description of the key challenge that leaders face, and by giving some examples. The third slide typically had ways to resolve it, and the nudge itself was, go do this in your organization. For example, leaders may so there's quote around how X percentage of managers hesitate to give feedback because of retaliation or something. The next thing would detail out why do managers hesitate giving feedback to their team members. The third slide would talk about what's the right way. A small couple of lines, do this, do this, do this, do this. You would have given effective feedback. Then the nudge would be to go identify that team member that you need to appreciate or give developmental feedback, complete it and just let us know that you've done. So that was day 1 challenge, day 2 challenge again something, day 3 challenge again something. So it was a combination of written and doing, kinesthetic and maybe verbal, maybe visual, because it had some visual elements also. So think about in terms of the content. The third part is how do I deliver it? Here is where you could choose to go the technology route, because technology has ability to scale and reach far and wide. If you design something like cue cards or a board game, the number of people your learning can reach is limited, but those are far more effective than digital learning. To give an example, when the same Grovember kind of challenge, if you put it out in your cafeteria, create a board game, leave it there for people to engage during their lunch breaks, the amount of people who are there on the table playing the game will be far more than the number of people who are sitting and eating lunch. And they are learning as they're engaging, because it is a game. You won't have to divide them into teams automatically. They would, some sort of chemistry would happen on the game table, and people would divide themselves into teams and they would start playing and engaging and answering and challenging each other. That does not have any digital use in this particular thing, but it is a physical game placed only in one cafeteria in one of your office premises. It is not you can't do it across geographies, across locations. So if your need is to scale, it's better to go digital. My favorite still is non-digital, where people engage with their hands, with their bodies. To me, that gives far more retention. Maybe that's my learning style. Finally, any learning intervention is, I shouldn't say useless, but it does not matter if you can't quantify what benefit it has had. So while designing the objectives itself, you should have designed the evaluation method in terms of how are you going to evaluate. For example, if you want to better leadership skills in your organization, do you have a baseline before you start the intervention? At the end of 30, 45 days, can you recalibrate and say, okay, my leaders were on 7 on 10, they have moved to 8 on 10 on these 4 parameters. Can you do that? So figure out how you are going to measure the impact. That will give you as a learning leader a lot more energy and power to present to your leaders, get buy-in, get funding, to experiment with technology, experiment with various kinds of games as you execute microlearning in your organization. I will pause for a bit. I know I've been yapping away a lot, to see if there are any questions before we move ahead. Yeah, I'm assuming no, so I'm proceeding. How will you enrich your learner experience? We've spoken about a lot in subtle ways. Let me hear from you. What do you think you can do to enhance the learner experience as you are designing your microlearning? Take a guess. We'll build onto it.
This is Ishita. Sometimes the learners are also not sure if they want to invest time in learning something. It's okay to go without knowing it.
So the learning objective and the evaluation is for you as the designer of the learning intervention. It's not for the learner. For the learner, this is just a game. This is just a way to have fun, or performance support. Oh, I'm getting stuck in doing this particular task. Can somebody help me? Yeah, for the learner, they're not bothered about learning objectives, and they're not bothered about their learning, whether it is having a huge impact overall in their career, or they are not bothered. So those are only for you as a intervention designer. Let me share. So what all can you do in order to make the session engaging, the microlearning engaging? We spoke about some of this. It has to be a blend of lot of these: video cards, infographics, cue cards, games, interactive, where it's like a simulation, where there are characters who play a certain part. The characters have a persona. You engage with them based on the persona, different outcomes coming. Quizzes, polls, a podcast, listening aids, all of these are amazing ways in which you can create microlearning. Some microlearning platforms, before we get there, I think it's important to understand the difference between an LMS platform and a microlearning platform. An LMS platform, and let me show you some examples also. These are places where you can house your longer courses. People can go register. Your recorded videos are long videos. For example, when we post this on YouTube, YouTube is acting as an LMS for us temporarily. Yeah. So you can post these videos, people can engage, they can rate the courses, they can search for courses. Anything that manages the learning is a learning management system. Whereas microlearning platforms would allow you to integrate. You created a video card, can you add audio onto it? Can you create animation for the same piece of content, so that a learner who learns by watching an animation is also able to get the content? A learner who is able to listen to content and grasp that knowledge is also benefiting, or somebody who just has to see knowledge and they are able to understand. For them also it caters. So the same piece of content can be created in multiple formats, typically happens in microlearning platforms. I've given some examples here. There are some other brilliant ones also that are available, very pricey ones.
I think we missed a few things.
Which one?
The previous slide.
What was the previous slide?
It was not visible for a long time, so I thought.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. So we were just talking about various delivery platforms. I started distinguishing between LMS and the dedicated microlearning platforms. Take a screenshot. Most of these microlearning platforms work on a freemium model, wherein the first couple of microlearnings you can create on the platform for free, engage with it, explore the tools, and then if you have to continue, you will have to pay for it. So try it out and create some fantastic microlearning as you engage with it. While we are talking about microlearning, yes, it is brilliant, it is engaging, it helps learner retention, performance support, post-session support. There are some challenges microlearning also brings to the table. What challenges do you think microlearning will pose?
So we can't add lot of content, you can limit it. There is a limit because it's a micro learning, so it has to live to that standard. So that is one big challenge, I think. So
in-depth knowledge you cannot build in this link.
Yes.
And
other things maybe, again, it is the recall. Though we are saying recall as one of the advantages, it can also be one of the disadvantages. Quickly they may remember, quickly they may forget. So both ways it may, be a challenge that way.
Yeah. And the tendency of the learner to not engage with the same learning again and again. We may have designed it in a way that only if the learner does it again and again, they will remember. But what if the learner is not enthusiastic enough to engage with the learning again and again? So it has defeated the purpose yet again. Lovely.
Yeah,
adding on to be done for all topics.
Can't be done for all topics. Brilliant. Can you give me an example of a topic for which microlearning will not work?
For something which you require an in-depth conceptual understanding, you cannot bring it into a 2 or 3 liners.
Yeah, when you're doing a leadership session for leaders, telling them how to create the strategy for the next year, 3 years, you can't use microlearning. It will not work because it's a very complex idea in itself, and microlearning will not work. Absolutely. What are the challenges?
Unlike macro learning, where we have dedicated hours for training or for learning, micro learning is on the go. So again, it is dependent on the learners.
Yeah, learner dependent. So if you need people ready by a certain time, micro learning might not be the best way. So apart from micro learning, you need some nudges to them saying that complete all of this by Friday. Then it defeats the purpose of micro learning yet again. But yes, that is a disadvantage. Yes, some disadvantages we are going to talk about is
if you repeat this learning, learners don't want to read this again.
Yeah, they don't want to read this again and again. Games they will play, videos they will not play again and again and watch. Audio they'll not listen again and again and watch. Yeah, so
True.
it is challenge for learning. There is a huge resistance to change in organizations. Typically, L&D leaders still believe only if they design 2-day, 1-day, half-day workshop are they doing their job. So the first resistance comes from the L&D leaders. Second resistance comes from people who believe that, why should I listen to 2 minutes every day? Why should I do this nudge of leadership every day? Or why should I look at a sales tip every day before I go for my sales call? I think I will sit through a session. That's how I have learned all these years, 30, 40 years. I've learned by sitting in a traditional classroom. So there is resistance to change, both from a learner and the designer perspective. Second, content overload. I think we spoke about it. We cannot overload content in microlearning. It has to be very bite-sized. The third challenge is engagement and motivation. Unless the learner is engaged, there are no guardrails that the learner will achieve what they want to. They have learned what they want to. Even after people having engaged with microlearning for an entire year, you really cannot guarantee they have learned everything they needed to, because it is based on their willingness to choose a particular module and learn. And if they've not encountered a situation, they will never go there. They might have missed that entire piece of learning. Of course, technology barriers, setting up, buying any of these tools we saw on the previous slide is an investment, and scaling up on any of these technologies, putting it on cloud, all of these are pretty extensive technology barriers. Measuring the effectiveness is again very, very difficult. Suppose there are 400 leaders and you've given them this 30-day challenge. Every day they have to do a challenge. How can you guarantee that people who took the challenge are now performing better versus people who didn't take the challenge? Very difficult to crystallize the benefits. As is, crystallizing the benefits of learning is very difficult. And in microlearning, it becomes even more difficult because a lot of it could be just a matter of chance. Finally, the existing integration with the existing platforms or programs that is already running very well. As we learned earlier, that microlearning has to partner with the traditional learning, has to be in addition to the traditional learning, cannot replace traditional learning. We cannot just have microlearning to survive or just microlearning to survive. They have to work hand in hand. But because the LMS is a separate platform, the microlearning tool is a separate platform, the way they integrate, engage, and talk with each other is very, very minimalistic. Okay, now let's look at each of these challenges and see how we can address this. How will you address resistance to change?
Gamify it.
Gamify it. Don't present it as a learning itself. Yeah, the moment people hear the word learning, it becomes, oh my god, additional task. Yeah, when you go down to the cafeteria, to the coffee vending machine, there's a board game that just play and enjoy those 5 minutes there, then it is not burden to the learner. Lovely. What else?
Pilot it for a specific program, see the benefits, and then ask for
Then
leadership.
scale up. Yeah. Then scale up. Correct.
Shanti, one good mechanism would be for the new hire onboarding process, right, Shanti? So when they join in, if you give them a micro learning, they probably, it's quicker and faster, right? Click here if you need to be in touch with your, say, account opening, or click here if you want to know something about the HR induction. Just a small micro learning would help a new joiner seamlessly transition in a new organization, right?
Lovely. And
Shanti?
that's the catch. Because when somebody is starting something new, there is no traditional approach.
Right.
New joiner does not know how traditional learning works. So they are very happy to engage. So
That's correct.
see if you can always integrate micro learning and macro learning. Make it a culture in the organization that yes, people will engage with the traditional 1 hour, 2 hour, 2 day kinds of learnings, but they are also constantly, growing themselves through these micro learning. With freshers, it is very easy because
it's
whatever you
easy.
give them is learning. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think, okay, we have to move to the next slide. Yeah. Yeah. Communicate the benefits, lots of benefits. Communicate in terms of how playing that game is going to help you. What will they learn by the end of playing the game? How will it benefit them in their workplace? So don't say at the end of the learning you will benefit like this. You say at the end of playing the game you will actually learn how to give feedback to your team members and make your feedback conversations or monthly connects with your team members easy. So that's the kind of benefit really that helps with them. Same time, do not stop providing the traditional training, because if your learner sees the micro learning as a replacement to the macro learning, that's where the resistance comes. But if you say that this is in addition to, it will complement your traditional learning, they are very happy to continue learning and engaging, and slowly you will see that culture change where they start to enjoy micro learning. Yeah, so do provide the traditional training, don't withhold. What can you do about the content overload?
We can present it with a real life example or a real life use case.
Lovely.
So just an example here, I follow a person called Sanjay Arora in LinkedIn. So he's a marketing and branding specialist. So he releases this 1 minute to 2 minute videos, which conveys a marketing concept with a real life thing. So
Lovely.
we are like more, it's the if you're just explaining the concept, it's too heavy. But because he is doing it with the real life thing, within that 1 or 2 minutes,
yeah,
the content is reduced and it is much, much more effective.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything else? Yeah. So one, prioritize key topics. Identify what one topic should they learn today. Yes, they have to learn 100 things, but what one thing should they learn today to create maximum impact? Yeah. And see if you can engage with that, and then curate content specific to that particular learning objective. There is another mechanism called as drip feed. Basically, you give them some content, allow it to digest, then you give them the next piece of content. Space it out in a way that it is consumable, it is digestible. Yeah, that also helps alleviate the negatives of content overload. Engagement and motivation, use lots of interactive content, gamify, various media to be used to increase engagement. Technology barriers, I don't think there is anybody who doesn't engage with mobile. Yeah, see if you can engage people when they are on the mobiles. It's not a great thing to say, but when we go onto an Instagram or a Facebook feed, we forget, we lose track of time, and we are constantly scrolling next one, next one, next one, next one. That tendency of humans where there is something catchy, something engaging, and people will continue learning a lot, is something what a lot of mobile apps use. There is an app called as Duolingo. Each module is 3 to 5 minutes long. It will teach you one particular concept, saying a particular sentence. You select a language. Suppose I want to learn speaking English better. It will give me small nudges. It will practice. It will give me feedback whether my vocabulary is updated, my diction is updated, whether it's a mother tongue influence, whether my pronunciation is correct. It's going to give me feedback, and then it will move me to the next one. And at every stage, I'm getting a reward. Yeah, I'm getting constant reward. I've achieved this level, I'm getting this reward, I'm getting these points. The gold coins at the top of the app keeps on increasing. So that's a way to motivate people, also related to gamification. Any technology that you're introducing should have strong technology support, because if once the app fails and your learner is unable to get back onto the app, as a result, they have unable to they are unable to perform their job or get the help that they need in that point in time, they will lose trust on that technology. That is also another reason for resistance to change. What if the technology fails? It will not work. Yeah, last two, measuring effectiveness. Figure out what metrics you want to track before the microlearning is introduced, during the microlearning is introduced, post the microlearning is introduced. So the real effectiveness is even after a month, 30, 60, 90 days. Track those measures again. Is there sufficient retention? Otherwise, you would have really not gathered the true metrics that you would have tracked. Gather lots of feedback. Did this work? Should we do this game differently? Should we do this video differently? Did this video help? Not help? What would have helped? So seek feedback from the learners constantly to sharpen your microlearning. Integrate with the existing platforms. Before you invest in technology, I think ask the technology service provider what all platforms will it integrate with. Test out the integration before you invest. That's a big thing. Ensure that any patches, any updates that need to be installed to keep your apps connected relatively smoothly, talking to each other, are all in place. Yeah. Next, I was going to give you some examples of microlearning in the industry, but I would want to see if there is anything else you would want me to talk through, or the examples would be helpful.
Shanti, I just have one query with, I think one of them had previously also again raised it. So you are told that we cannot design any programs targeting at learners. I mean, we cannot measure which learner, right, belongs to which style.
Which kind of learning style, yeah.
Kind of learning style, yeah. And then so we have to create comprehensive programs which will address the majority.
Include most of the forms of learning, yes.
But how do you actually do that? That was the question I had.
Yeah, do you have a problem statement, the objective that you design? You want to take that up? I can probably walk you through how I would create microlearning for it.
I mean, I am a teacher, so I teach students. So if I have to deliver a concept, so for example, the concept of marginal utility. So for example, if I am going and giving you the same service again and again and again, the satisfaction which the customer is going to get from that is going to reduce.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why people innovate the same products again and again and again. I mean, bring in some kind of a difference. So when I used to deliver this particular concept, I used to deliver it predominantly using a story, which I tell them using a PPT. So as in when I tell the story, the PPT also moves with the pictures, and then I deliver the concept. So here it is only two people, right? It is the auditory and it is the visual I'm addressing.
Correct. Yeah. So it is, you're right, Turmila, that it is impossible for one activity to involve in everything. You may choose to give another example, which is a video animation played, or a similar example. And for this, normally we will say, 20 years ago, mobile phones were used only to make calls. That was their sole purpose. But then that became commonplace. So that was not a delighter to your customer anymore. That became, okay, that's a must have. How can a phone not allow me to make and receive calls, right? So I need something else. Slowly texting started. So then that became commonplace. Then
camera.
What do you say? Images started. Yeah, camera started. Then that became commonplace. Now phone, there was a time where I did not bother where my phone was kept the moment I reached home, because my office hours are over. If somebody wants, they will call me during work hours. I'm not going to attend to my phone. That used to be my attitude, to now, where even into the washroom, I will take my phone, because what if somebody calls? What if somebody messages? It's that urge to stay connected, because the phone has become a way to stay connected. So if you give this example in a video format, that becomes video. If it has audio, that becomes audio. So even in the way where you're telling a story, it is catering to multiple kinds of learners, people who listen and learn, people who, the auditory, the verbal, the kinesthetic, because they're seeing a practical example in front of them, you're actually catering to multiple of these, even in your example. But you can give a couple of more examples in different formats, and that will serve your purpose.
Yeah, to add on to what Shanti said, can I say something?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Urmila, I think you're talking about the theory of marginal utility, diminishing marginal utility.
Yes,
right?
yes.
The typical example of the banana, instead, if you're doing it for students, you can give chocolates. I can give you one more. Obviously, after a few seconds, some of them would say enough, right?
I don't need any more. Yeah.
So it will differ from person to person. So probably this would be where you're involving them in the learning. A little bit of kinesthetic, a little bit of social learning can be considered. Or you can ask them, can you think of an instance where you love something a lot, but when you were given too much, you were not able to take it all, and you had to say a no, but you felt bad saying. That would be for verbal learners. They said, yes, I know this happened when my grandmother came from abroad, or something on those lines, where they recollect an instance, they speak, and now you're relating it to the concept, and then they say, oh yeah, now I understand. So I'm just trying to bring in, how different things can be done. Probably you can't do all of it in one go, but for this theory, you can do one. For another theory, you can do something else, so that you have addressed the needs of different kinds of learners for various concepts.
Okay, just one last question here. Is there a questionnaire or any kind of tool which we can use to see what kind of learners do we have majority in the class, and then design the lessons accordingly?
Yes, there are free tools available that tell you what kind of a learner your audience is, and based on that you can design learning. Absolutely possible. Just write to one of me or Vaishnavi at the end of the session, or just respond back to the invite and we will share those assessments with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes,
most welcome. Yeah, so what you see on the screen, people, are various very large firms who have engaged with microlearning and have had very significant success. For example, Google, I'm going to read it, Whisper course is what they used to
actually
call it.
the screen is not moving, ma'am. We are still in the overcoming challenges first page.
Why does it happen again and again? Okay, I will reshare. Oh, no idea. Why is it not moving? Can you see now?
Yes, ma'am.
The examples, yeah. So each of these organizations has engaged with microlearning, some for sales, some for product training, some for technology training, some for process training. I know because I'd worked with them, Flipkart. Flipkart has to package every product that they are shipping. And people who package had to be given lots of training, and that training would sometimes carry on for several days and weeks before they can be put onto the floor. Plus, it would create lots of wastage in terms of packaging material. They engaged with AR, augmented reality, where the packer would wear gloves and pretend packing, and on the screen they can see how they are packing. The moment they make a mistake, the entire packet will open up again and they have to redo till they do the entire process correctly and multiple times. So they clear this level, then they move to the next level. So there is no packaging wastage. There is nobody that needs to monitor, team lead kind of a person telling them, no, this is wrong, because the system automatically gives feedback. Even for such a simple thing of packaging something in the right way, there have been micro learnings that have been implemented. Yeah. With that, we do come to the end of the session. Basically, we've spoken, it's not ideal for complex problems, not suited for in-depth training. We do risk oversimplification of concepts because we can just choose one objective to cover. It is not ideal for all learners. Suppose you have a series of videos, and I am not a visual learner. I am a solitary learner who is very happy reading a book. You will not capture my attention. Yeah. Whereas in a macro learning, you can mix and match multiple media, and you can ensure that all kinds of participants are catered to, and may lack content integration because of technology, or because I take one module today, one module in September, module number 5 before module number 7. All of those things can happen. So there is that sequential engagement with content might not be there. with that, I stop the share. Would love to know what you've learned, what you've gathered. How can we help you if you are planning to design microlearning in your organization?
Yeah, ma'am, as Urmila, I think, was asking about the questionnaire, no, on how to identify. I would request if you can just share
it with all participants. Along with our recording, we'll share it with all participants.
As well as this PPT also, ma'am. I think we missed a few slides in between.
Yeah, because of the the recording will anyways have all the slides, but let me also see if I can share a PDF version to the
yes,
absolutely.
Yes, that will help. Thank you. So my takeaway from this is definitely that identification of identification of learners is actually important.
Yes.
Okay, because we can't give one shoe fits all size nowadays, you know.
Yeah.
One shoe size fits all. So I think this is the first step which possibly I will take it up. Yeah, once I get the questionnaire.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you for the session, Shanti. It was quite interactive. It was very crisp and to the point. Gave a very good brief overview of microlearning. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Preeta.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I did not expect that you will be covering the different learning styles as well. So that was really needed. And I did not know that there were so many different styles. And after attending, I am now getting ideas of how I can pre-plan my sessions to maximize the learning.
Lovely. And please use the WhatsApp community to throw ideas. I'm sure there is so much of wealth of knowledge. People with 25, 30 years of experience in the L&D space are part of the community. If you just ask a problem, they would all pitch in with their solution. So you will your repository of ideas will increase like anything. Please use the community. Lovely. Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Thanks, Ruchi.
Thank you, Shanti. The session is more interactive. So today, my takeaway is like I got to know like different types of learners. So how can we differentiate that one? And another thing, I try to implement this microlearning within our team. So maybe that helps.
Lovely. And do give a shout out if you are getting stuck or you are not sure how or what kind of intervention to design. We'd be very happy to help and support. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Shanti. Thank you, Vaishnavi.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, feel free to drop. We will share the recording and the link to the assessment to identify the type of learner. Thank you. Thanks, Beena.
Thank you, Shanti. Thank you.
We can stop the recording, Vaishnavi.